Is it an attempt to create a situation where if materials delay in the strongholds of some parties, 3 o'clock, they say they've closed. So you disenfranchise some people? They are the ones who open room for people to speculate because it's a completely unreasonable proposition.
We have more as the NDC lists 6 electoral reforms, including voting formula for IPAC members with representation in Parliament.
The participation of IPAC and its advisory role in the electoral process should be given legal backing without encroaching on the constitutional independence of the Electoral Commission.
We'll hear from the EC tonight, which says the reforms agreed at a recent IPAC meeting is what will be binding on all political parties, including the NDC, which opted out of that meeting. That and more here on Top Story, brought to you by Vodafone. The future is exciting, ready, and Gassam, the nation builder. Tonight, the NDC is opposing a decision by the Inter-Party Advisory Committee to end polls at 3 p.m. instead of 5 p.m. Director of Elections for the NDC, Elvis Ifriankra, described the decision as a poorly thought-through one designed to disenfranchise eligible voters and also create needless problems for the electoral system. The party insists the current arrangement of closing polls at 5 p.m. should be maintained. At a press conference to assess the electoral reforms proposed by the NDC, the NDC also kicked against the substitution of periodic mass registration with continuous registration, among others. We can listen to the Director of Elections for the party, Elvis Ifriankra.
The first and most important reform required is for the EC to reform itself. Particularly, Jen Mansa and Bosman Asari, they must be the first to reform and change their attitude of arrogance and bias. Ladies and gentlemen, we have worked with various commissioners, we've worked with Dr. Farijan. The posturing and attitude of Jane Mensah and Bosman Asari is that of unbridled arrogance, pomposity, bias, and disrespect, particularly for the NDC and its national officers. Closure of polls at 3 p.m. in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the NDC finds a proposal by the J. Mensah-led EC to change the closing time of polls from 5 p.m. to 3 p.m. in 2024 baffling and mind-boggling. Since the 1992 elections, polls have always closed at 5 p.m. This has worked perfectly without any challenges whatsoever. It therefore beggars belief that the EC would want to change this time-tested arrangement and go for a poorly thought-through alternative, which is bound to disenfranchise eligible voters and create needless problems for our electoral system. This is particularly so given the undue delay we usually record in the delivery of electoral materials to some polling stations and other technical challenges that usually characterize voting in this country. Friends from the media, our position on this proposal is simple. The current arrangement of closing polls at 5 p.m. has worked perfectly in 7 general elections in this country and does not require any fixing. And to quote her, she said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is it an attempt to create a situation where if materials delay in the strongholds of some parties, 3 o'clock, they say they've closed. So you disenfranchise some people? They are the ones who open room for people to speculate because it's a completely unreasonable proposition.
So that's Elvis Ifriankra, is the Director of Elections of the NDC. My colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson has just returned from that press conference. He joins me in studio. So Kwesi, we know that there were 4 key proposals that was put forward by the Electoral Commission and considered by IPAC. Of course, there are some decisions that are still under consideration. We'll go through it. But tell us about the key objective of this particular press conference as held by the NDC.
Well, so for the Director of Elections for the NDC, Elvis Yankra, they responded to three key issues here. Now, one, the comment by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission that the 2020 polls were successful. They made the point, citing a number of reasons why the conduct of the polls were unsuccessful, and in fact, he described it as flawed, according to the chairman of the NDC. After this election, almost about 16 parliamentary elections are in contest at the moment. And clearly you cannot say that if you conduct an election and then 16 constituencies are in court challenging the outcome of the election, they can call it successful. So that was one angle of it. The second angle was to deal with the electoral reforms proposed by the Electoral Commission and subsequently adopted by members of IPAC. There were four key things the Electoral Commission put up. The NDC opposed to all the four electoral reforms proposed by the Electoral Commission.
So outrightly rejects all four.
All four.
Which is closing polls at 3 p.m., instituting an all-year-round system where citizens who turn 18 or persons who have not
opportunity to register,
amongst others.
Right. And finally, to explain to us the reason for boycotting the IPAC meeting, which of course concluded or adopted the electoral reform that the Electoral Commission talked about. Now, interestingly, the NDC themselves also have their own.
So what particular reason did they give for not attending the particular IPAC meeting?
Essentially, it was about the bias, according to the NDC, towards them during the election.
Okay.
Again, they talk about, in quote, in their own words, the arrogance by the members of the commission, including the chairperson herself, and particularly the deputy EC boss, Dr. Bosmanasari.
Okay.
They believe that these individuals in months gone by or the month preceding the elections were not listening to the NDC, and they don't see any wisdom in attending a meeting which will be chaired by these two who subsequently have disrespected and disregarded the views of the NDC.
Okay,
it's
so
the reason
after
they did not attend this meeting.
Okay, so after rejecting these key proposals as adopted by IPAC, the NDC has its own electoral reforms that they put out?
Yes, they have their own electoral reforms, Emefa. Now, one of the things that they talked about is something that has been going on for some time now. IPAC should be given legal backing so that when they take a decision there, at least we know that it has the powers of the law and must be implemented, among others. You can listen to Elvis Yankra make that proposal at the press conference.
One, that the participation of IPAC and its advisory role in the electoral process should be given legal backing without encroaching on the constitutional independence of the Electoral Commission. Two, that the EC adopts an equitable voting formula for political parties in IPAC deliberations based on their representation in Parliament. So as we speak now, there are two parties with representation in Parliament, the NDC and NPP. You think that the EC thinks they can do reforms and they won't take into account the NDC's position? Does it make sense? So you see where they are leading us to. And it is because of that posturing that they can do whatever they want. So you cannot have a situation where a party that has 137 seats in Parliament, we go for meeting, our opponents, the NPP, they also have 137 seats. And then you have parties that have no seats. Not to talk about even whether they are nationally represented. That's not for me to declare. Okay, they didn't even participate in the elections. And you say when we go and vote, I should have one vote, NPP should have one vote, and all those parties similarly should have one vote. Does it make sense? And they have been recruited by the EC to deceive themselves and Ghanaians. That is fraudulent behavior. That the Electoral Commission complies with the use of the legally prescribed statement of poll pink sheet from 8A and 8B, provided for in our election regulations to prevent the omission of BVD entries so as to preserve the ballot accounting process and make it possible to check multiple voting, ballot stuffing, impersonation, and other forms of rape. Next, that the high rate of recorded in the 2020 general elections be addressed through the use of appropriate ink pads, and that same should be stipulated in our election regulations. 5, that the EC employs and trains highly competent staff to accurately fill election results form and collate results so as to forestall the recurrence of the widespread cases of arithmetic errors recorded in the 2020 elections. Finally, that the Electoral Commission reverts to the time-tested election security arrangement where the deployment of security for election purposes is reserved to the Ghana Police Service, acting within a framework provided by the Electoral Commission. This security arrangement should have minimum involvement of the military and no interference, I repeat, no interference by the so-called national security operatives as recommended by the Emil Short Commission.
So that's the Director of Elections of the NDC. We'll be hearing from the Electoral Commission shortly. Earlier, we interacted with Dr. Srebo Kweku, Director of Electoral Services, who mentioned that the decision taken by IPAC at the recently ended review meeting is binding on all the political parties, as long as you're a member of IPAC. He also goes on to tell my colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson about steps that will be taken to give legal backing to some of these reforms that were adopted by IPAC. But let's bring in one of the political parties that were present at that IPAC meeting. We've seen other political parties that the NDC have had cause to question because of their status and legal standing. But the EC says that once they have not been struck out, they are still recognized by the Electoral Commission. Mr. Evans Demako is Director of Elections of the NPP. We're grateful for your time here on Top Stories. So let's just quickly clarify this. These 4 proposals that were put forward by the Commission during that review meeting, would you say that it was unanimously or accepted by all the political parties present at IPAC, including yourself, the NPP?
Well, thank you, Emefa, for having me. I think the communique that was issued at the close of the 2-day workshop by IPAC, security and media who were there, all political parties who expressed their willingness to honor the invitation by EC signed. And so, for me, it confirms that this is the initial position by stakeholders of IPAC on how we should look at the electoral processes going into the 2024 elections.
Okay, but I'm concerned. The concern that has come up, and some of us have also had cause to question some of the political parties that were present at that meeting. For instance, I'm seeing a ULP, a PUP, I'm seeing a GNP, and a UDS party and all. Is the NPP not worried about some of these names that are on the list, as I have in front of me as we speak? Are these parties in good standing? I know you are not the EC, but you are a stakeholder. Are you not worried about these names that you see there as political parties?
So I'm not in a position to speak to that issue. We have, as of now, 24 registered political parties. When we're going into the 2020 presidential elections, 11 political parties and an independent candidate contested. It means that the other parties could not participate. It is the duty of the EC to ensure that political parties, what they are sought, comply with the rules. And so that is that big. The fact that NDC decided not to participate does not take away their name and cannot take away their name from the political party registered list that the EC has.
Okay.
There can be further interrogation into the issue. When the EC were introducing the new voter management system, some political parties alongside the NDC disagreed. At that point, did the NDC raise concern about the presence of New Vision Party or Ghana Freedom Party or Ghana Movement Party?
Okay, but these political parties, at least, I saw the ballot paper, and I didn't see most of these parties on the ballot paper, and they are going to be part. Excuse me, if I may, but they are part of a review workshop of the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections of Ghana. If they did not participate in that election, what locus do they have to review that particular election?
Well, thank you, but I think that we can broaden at this stage the level of consultation. Not too long ago, Cordio and CDD organized a review workshop. Cordio had monitored the voting arrangement in the December election. Same as your media house, you were represented by Evans Mensah. Other media houses were also around. Civil society organizations were also there. ISEC was there, and NDC was there in that discussion. But it's a local observing team that observed the elections and was organizing a retreat to review what they saw and engage stakeholders.
So with that out of the way, Evans, with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the proposals that were accepted by all these political parties, including the NPP, as you say. Close of polls at 3 p.m. instead of at 5 p.m. What exactly was the thought process that went into that?
Well, I think that Ghana has, going to the elections, we have 70 million people on the electoral roll. And you are looking at a situation where, as much as possible, the elections management body will ensure that everybody on the electoral roll is able to vote, and the EC and the presiding officers and the assistants who are responsible will go through the counting process in good time, so that results can be declared in good time. We've had situations where polls start at 7 and closes at 5 p.m. When it closes, the whole election period doesn't end. It goes through counting, it goes through recording of figures onto the result sheet and all that. And if I let me tell you, in Nigeria, where they have more than 84 million registered voters, their poll starts at 8 a.m. and closes at 2 p.m. We are looking at best practices.
But at least I'm old enough to have seen 7 elections in this country, and it all ends at 5 p.m. Have we had any issues, for instance, such that we need to now close at 3 p.m. instead of 5 p.m.?
We think that it stands to reason. It is more reasonable to conduct elections in polling stations where people are able to vote in good time. The post-election counting are able to be done in good time. Said that we will have this whole process going into the night. When polls end at the polling station, results are counted at the polling station and recorded. It doesn't end there. Presiding officers are supposed to travel to constituency collation centers and collect results for parliamentary elections, for that to be declared by the returning officers at the constituency level. And so if you are closing at 5 p.m., it becomes very uncomfortable when you have officers of the elections management body, you have media, you have security, conveying the electoral material to the constituency collation centers. And so it stands to reason that if you be able to close in good time, get all people on the register, cast their vote, do the recording, transport the materials to constituency collation centers, and get these things done at the right time to ensure that
Interesting proposal there, Mr. Nimako. But of course, the NDC today has been rejecting all those proposals, including giving reasons that it could disenfranchise people, especially in some of their strongholds. They've also put forward some proposals on their part, up to 6 of them. I'll pick your thoughts on just one of them, for instance. The participation of IPAC and its advisory role in the electoral process should be giving legal backing. You agree?
Yes, we should look at the Constitution, what it says about the EC and the role that IPAC has played over the years. The EC is independent, but their independence is not only just about the EC, but it's about the conduct of a process that cannot be interfered by any other body. So when we are thinking through, we should look at not interfering with the operations of the EC. That is why IPAC plays a role of helping with decision making.
So in essence, Mr. Nimako, you're supporting the fact that IPAC should be given legal backing. The NDC says without encroaching on the constitutional independence of the Electoral Commission.
If it was easier, it would have been done long ago. And we must make sure that this proposal will not conflict with the mother constitution. NDC is out there today complaining, and nothing stops them from talking. But they are doing so on wrong platform. What stops them from coming to IPAC? If they think that IPAC is a platform where ideas could be sought from stakeholders, and if party says that, yes, filing fees need to be looked at, exhibition has to be considered, registration, according to the Act, has to be done continuously. The modalities, the regime said that has to be looked into.
Okay.
And NDC says they disagree. I have in front of me the EU report. And if you look at the summary paragraph 2, specifically says that the elections was conducted in a competitive manner, in an efficient and transparent manner. And Mr. P.A. is saying that is false.
Okay, Ms. Animako, we'll have to leave it here. We're still working the lines to reach the communications officer of the NDC, Sami Jemfi, also to join us shortly. We'll also pick the thought of Kodeo's Mr. Albert Ahin shortly. But my colleague Kwesi Pakawozon is still with me in the studios. You've also been interacting with Dr. Sribro Kweku on this before and after the NDC's press conference. Let's talk about their position ahead of the NDC's press conference first off.
Okay, so for the EC, they were clear that they invited the NDC. They did not come and they did not attend the IPAC meeting, and so all the decisions there are binding on all political parties. However, the decision will be taken to Parliament to get some legal backing to make the changes that they have adopted at the meeting. Again, on the issue of the 3 p.m. closure, he indicated to me that if people are still in the queue at 3 p.m., they'll be given the opportunity to vote until the last person is able to cast the ballot. So it's not that at 3 p.m., if about 100 people or 100 electorates are in the queue, they'll just say, oh, we are done with the polls, go home. Okay. That is not going to happen.
We'll be hearing from Dr. Sribro Kweku. Stay with me, Paka. Let's bring in the communications officer of the NDC, Mr. Sami Jemfi. We're grateful for your time here on Top Stories there. So you've put out some 6 fine ideas that the NDC thinks should be implemented as part of electoral reforms. But you could have saved all of us the time by participating in that 2-day review, which would have been part of that communique that was issued.
Thanks for having me, Emefa. I think we addressed that issue at our press conference today, that our temporary boycott of IPAC is to push for the right changes in the current modus operandi of IPAC, particularly the current voting rights arrangements at IPAC and the posture of the Electoral Commission, without which our involvement in IPAC deliberations will be inconsequential. Our presence there will not make any difference until and unless IPAC itself is reformed. And we have spoken about the challenges that undermine meaningful and fair deliberations and voting at IPAC that needs to be looked at. It has to do
our concern then is how these proposals that you put forward, these 6 of them, how then does they get off the media and of course the NDC's press release and to become reforms that will be adopted by the Electoral Commission, for instance?
I mean, election 2024 is 3 years, 7 months away. So it's not like we're going to have elections tomorrow. And the conversation about the proposals, electoral reform proposals that we need to adopt to improve our electoral system and the 2024 election cannot be an event by the process. And so the process has only begun. We have indicated that we will be writing to the Electoral Commission to share our position on the reform proposals they've come up with, and also to share with them our alternative proposals. And beyond that, engage civil society, the media, the clergy, the chieftaincy institution, the diplomatic community, civil society, and other stakeholders in our electoral system,
The
on
the
these
same
things. So,
electoral commission that invited you to a review of the next election and proposals and reforms for the next election, which you boycotted. I'm wondering how you're going to get them
no, I am
to
saying
adopt these
that
proposals.
because that platform, that IPAC platform we have explained to you, is not the appropriate platform to, if you like, do a candid assessment of the 2020 election and come up with reforms. The current arrangement of IPAC does not respect divergent views, to EC positions, particularly views from the NDC. If we had participated in this meeting, let me tell you what would have happened. Would have gone there, would have stated our counter proposals and our positions on the proposals they have made. Okay, they would have dismissed it anyway, or they would have subjected it to a vote, and political parties which did not even participate in the 2020 presidential elections
So if you
were
were
going to be called
there
upon to vote.
and they would have
Now, if I'm coming, they were going to be called upon to vote on those proposals. And these are mushroom political parties. Some of these parties are mushroom political parties, some of whom did not participate in the 2020 elections, that have been invited to review that election that they did not participate in, some of whom don't even have offices in this country, that have been recruited by Emefa and the MPP to do their bidding at IPAC. We are saying that we can't count for a deliberation on reforms for the 2024 election, where Kriadonko and Kofi Apawu will have the same voting rights.
But Mr. Samijemfi, I'm
As
wondering
the
how.
NDC, that's the point we are talking about.
If I may, Mr. Samijemfi, you mentioned that these political parties, some mushroom political parties, were recruited by Madam Jean Mensa. How so? Why would you say that? Because we've seen their representatives here. We're told that they are on the books as long
My
as
dear,
they are
where
on the books.
in the world?
How then do you accuse Jean Mensa of recruiting them?
Where in the world have you seen an electoral management body inviting political parties that did not take part in an election to review that election? Check about 6 of the political parties that attended this 2-day workshop and signed the communique which has been issued, like ULP, UDS, and all that. These are not political parties that participated in the elections. These are not political parties that we know in this country. In fact, we have attended IPAC meetings where you go and you have representatives of these mushroom parties fighting among themselves that we don't know you. You are not a member of our party. Then another person comes to say, we know you. We rather have the authority to represent our party. The whole thing is a charade.
So that's the reason why you are mooting a formula for IPAC members with representation in Parliament. Is it that you want more votes than these political parties? What exactly? Are you more political party than they are? Is that what you're saying? No.
It's, for example, Jean Mensa has been the director of IEA for some time. When she was at IEA, anytime IEA engaged political parties, they engaged political parties based on their strength in Parliament, their representation in Parliament. You understand? During the tenure of Dr. Farijan, when the biometric register was being, the processes for the new biometric register, was rolled out, a committee was put up, and the NDC, the MPP had one representation each. All other smaller political parties were given one representative. So this is not a new phenomenon we are talking about. That has been the arrangement under the Afarijan-led Electoral Commission and the Charlotte Osei-led Electoral Commission. It is this current Electoral Commission, administration of the Electoral Commission, that has changed that system and has introduced a system that is self-serving. So they come with their own predetermined proposals. Your views are inconsequential. They subject those proposals to a vote. And these mushroom political parties who do not even participate in the elections, they are reviewing, are giving the same voting rights as the NDC, which has 137 parliamentary seats, just like the MPP. And it's before Parliament. That is not going anywhere.
Okay. We'll leave it here for now. Thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we're out of time. That's Samijemfi, Communications Director, Officer of the NDC there. And Paka, briefly, it's time for Newsnight. And Ernest Menu has joined me in studio. We would get the details of the headline shortly, but briefly give us the response of the Electoral Commission after
The
the
NDC
press
says they are
conference.
writing to the Electoral Commission. The EC, my sources there tells me that a committee will be looking into all the proposals that the NDC is submitting to the Commission, and then they will respond accordingly when they receive the proposal.
Thank you very much, Baka. Time for Newsnight.
Laboratory scientists at the Konfuanochi Teaching Hospital.
We need the results to be medically cleared. So since they are saying they are not on strike, it means you have to wait till they resume.
We have details as the Health Ministry urges them to call off the action and submit their memoranda for resolution. Also, another day of chaos in some centers as second round of vaccinations continue in some 43 districts in Greater Accra, Ashanti and Central regions. We'll speak live to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service on how they intend to address these challenges.
Also tonight, 7 hopefuls, 1 job as committee led by Ashanti Regional Minister concludes vetting of aspirants for the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly top job.
There's a package that I have termed Kumasi Waste Elimination Initiative.
The agenda is to make sure we have a healthy and safety cities.
Tonight, we hear from some of the aspirants and the regional minister, and also President Akufo-Addo constitutes an inter-ministerial committee to investigate the rising cases of road crashes in Ghana, with more than 1,000 lives already lost this year alone.
His Excellency the President has actually formed an interministerial committee, which I'm privileged to chair. But you will soon realize that there's an increase, patrol of these offenses.
And in business, World Bank President David Malpass ruled out debt cancellation call by President Akufo-Addo, but proposes a more sustainable way in dealing with the high debt levels in the African region.
Also tonight, corporate institutions unwilling to partner African football. That's according to Confederation of African Football President Patrice Motsepe. Details later in sports.
Hans Mensand will bring us those details, and much later here on Newsnight. No administration since Nkrumah can't compare to our industrialization drive. That's the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Since the government of President Nkrumah, our first president, there has been no government in this country with a clear industrial vision.
We have details of these stories and more here on Newsnight. You can join us with your views and comments on 055 997. That's our WhatsApp console. If you're watching on Facebook, you can leave your comments there. My name is Ernest Menu.
And I am Emefa Apawu.
And tonight we'll start from the Ashanti region, where some patients at the Konfuanochi Teaching Hospital were left stranded and their relatives frustrated because there was a freeze on some aspect of healthcare delivery there. Medical laboratory scientists are protesting the appointment of 2 medical doctors to the Laboratory Services Directorate. Ohime Interior of our health desk has been on this beat, and he reports that some of the patients were forced to go home and others resorted to private labs where possible.
The over 300 medical laboratory scientists are not happy with the decision by managers to post 2 medical officers to the directorate. They insist the appointment of the 2 is intended to sideline its members qualified for the position. Members say they will continue to withdraw their services until the decision is reversed. Some of them were seen idling about in the presence of their disappointed patients.
Since they are saying they are going on strike, it means you have to wait till they resume, so that if you're able to get our results, you can send it to our respective doctors who are supposed to take care of us.
Many patients seeking laboratory services were left stranded. The laboratory scientists,